Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Figured I would give you an update on this radio, how it's going, and I've found a few problems already, and I'm a bit new to this, but I think I've got an idea of what's going on. Uh, so this thing has a bad 60 hertz hum, and I'll explain my theory as to what's happening, and could be wrong, could be right, but I've already had this thing entirely apart. I've had the clock out of it, I've had the board out. The only thing I didn't take out was the speaker. I didn't really have a reason to, so I didn't bother with that. But the reason that I had to take everything apart was to get a photo of the bottom of this board because it's shrouded underneath and you can't see it. So I had to take all of this loose to get the board out, to flip it over. And the reason why I did that, let me turn the brightness up on this thing, I'm sorry. Hard to see, huh? There we go, that's a lot better. But I wanted to get these photos, and this makes it so easy to look at a board and to get a quick idea. And it doesn't have to be a tube. You can do this with solid state modern stuff too. But you can draw out all the traces. So in order to make things simpler, you know, this is an IF transformer, so there's a coil and a capacitor in parallel on this side and then on this side as well, but it's internal. So I just drew that out so I would know. And then the oscillator coil, you can figure out where the actual coils tap into pretty easily by looking at the schematic, as long as it's right. And then just for reference, I've got a schematic on this side for everything. I had to actually pay money for this. I could find one for free, but it was just the resolution wasn't good enough to read all of it. So anyway, this is what I got going on, and let's see if there's anything else. I'm still working on this. It takes a while to go through one, but I like to label all the tubes, and then I'll go through and label like the pins for each one. So K is your cathode. You got like 5 grids in this one, filaments, so on and so forth. So anyway, your filaments, like this is the blue line's actually the filament circuit. So you can see, remember last time I was saying that these were all in series. So there's technically that's a resistor between those. So I just drew that out. There's a resistor between that one, and then it goes around here in a loop. And actually the dial lamp that I'll show you is right here. Those are the wires going to it. So I just drew that out for quick reference, so I don't have to think about it. So yeah, let's power this thing up. So I'm gonna turn on this current limited power supply right here, and my meter right here is measuring the AC voltage on the outlet right there. So I'm gonna slowly crank up this variac, and I'm gonna turn the light out for this so I can watch my light bulbs there. I'll turn this on. I'll crank it up to around 70 volts, provided that they're, oh, I bumped my, believe it or not, it's pretty hard to get, there we go. Okay, dude, why is my camera like this? Jesus. Okay, so we're gonna crank it up, watch our light bulbs simultaneously, just to make sure there aren't any shorts. And we're at 51 and they're still dim, so I think we're good. So let's go up to around 70, and wait a minute. Let's see if our filaments are on. That one's on, right there. Do you see that? See that? Yeah, that filament's on. So they should all be on, whether in series. The filament for the rectifier is on top right here, and it takes forever for it to heat up. I guess it puts out a lot more heat than the others do, but it's starting to get dimly red right here. Okay, I'm gonna wipe my camera off again. This is awful. Hey, we have sound. So shortly after we get sound, it should start to actually oscillate as it starts to amplify, and you can immediately hear that 60 hertz hum that I was telling you about. There, we're starting to oscillate, and you can tell this is AM because the peaks are varying in amplitude, so it tells you that we are receiving radio signals, whether or not we actually hear them, because everything's being drowned out by that hum. So we can adjust our oscillator and change the frequency and make it shorter or longer, what have you. So yeah, I'll show you the exact problem. So this is a rectifier tube, and the job of a rectifier tube, you can think about it, it's just a diode. So diodes only conduct in one direction, and so when you have alternating current, it's a sine wave that alternates polarity just like that. So this is negative, this is positive, and what a diode does is it just chops off the negative portion or the positive, depending on which way you face it. And so once you do that, once you chop off the negative, the polarity no longer changes. So at that point, in effect, you have a choppy version of DC. Well, what happens after it comes off of the cathode of this, it goes to this filter capacitor right here. And that filter capacitor, what its job is as this voltage rises for the first time, it should store that charge and keep the voltage constant, so you have a nice steady DC. But what happens with these paper capacitors over decades is the paper inside starts to turn yellow, just like a book on a shelf. And over decades that happens, and it goes acidic when it does so. And when it goes acidic, it starts to conduct. Now, capacitors should never conduct DC. Now, they will pass AC through them, but they should never conduct DC through them. In effect, this thing is becoming a resistor. And that, I believe, is actually the source of this constant hum that we're hearing from the speaker. Because, the reason I say that is because this probe right here is going to my older scope, and this probe is measuring the B+. Now, B+ is just a holdover from the old days. It stood for battery plus, but all it is high voltage DC that's coming off of this rectifier after it's been filtered at the filter capacitor right here. And if this capacitor, we can think about this, if this capacitor starts to turn into a resistor, it'll still act like a capacitor, it'll still attempt to charge up, but when you remove the voltage source from it, it'll start to discharge through itself and the voltage will go down. And I believe that's exactly what we're seeing up here. So those are, that's our 60 hertz sine wave, but I think in the negative portions, it's just discharging. And the entire amplification circuit relies on that steady DC. And if it's got ripple in it like that, then you'll end up hearing it at the output, which is what's happening right now. So yeah, I've got this is actually two capacitors in one. So we'll look at the schematic right here and I'll show you where it is. So this is that filter capacitor on the schematic, and it's got a 30 microfarad side and a 75 microfarad side, and then it's got a common right here to ground. So I'll have to replace that with two different caps. And there's also this black one right there has to go as well. It's most likely failed too. And then that one back there underneath those wires is gonna have to come out as well. Let's see if I can find that black one. Is this right here? It's this 0.047 microfarad cap across the AC line. And then I want to say that 47 there, I believe that one's a actual 47. Yeah, no, that's not it. That's the small one right there. Can you see that one? Usually that's a ceramic capacitor, that thing behind the resistor. It's sitting kind of close to the shell of that tuning cap. Those are usually fine. You usually don't have to do anything with them. They're pretty stable. But the paper ones have to go. I mean, no questions asked. So yeah, I'm gonna get those ordered and go from there with it.